I wanted a robotic vacuum that cleans well, empties itself, recharges automatically, and generally goes about its business without interaction from me. I got the Roomba S9 Plus by iRobot, and I've had it for about a year and a half. Does it live up to the promise of a hassle-free vacuuming experience? Let's find out as we try to simply answer the question, is it good? Before we get into it, I want to say that this is not a sponsored review. I purchased this device with my own money and I do not have any relationship with the manufacturer at this time. The Roomba S9 Plus is a bundle of two things: iRobot's top-of-the-line Roomba vacuum, the S9, plus the Clean-Base docking station, which both charges the robot and empties the robot's internal dust bin by vacuuming its contents into a disposable bag that's stored in the base. The robot's dust bin can be manually emptied if needed, but the dock allows the robot to run multiple times without manual interaction. You just throw away and replace the bag in the base every month or two. Alright, now we know what the S9 Plus is. How do we know if it's any good? I've decided on 4 criteria. Number 1, it needs to be independent. It needs to run without interaction. It needs to not get stuck or lost or run out of power or stop when the dust bin is full. In other words, it needs to be a hands-off experience. Number 2, it needs to be flexible as to when and where it operates. For when, I should be able to start it manually with something like a button or an app or a voice command. And I should be able to start it automatically, like on a schedule or maybe when I leave the house. For where, I should be able to tell it specifically where to clean, at least on a room-by-room basis. And it would be even better if I could tell it to clean specific areas inside a room that get frequently dirty, like a welcome mat at the door or under a dining room table, maybe around my cat's litter box when he scatters litter on the floor. And I should be able to tell it to stay away from certain areas, like where a bunch of power cords might be, or where my cat's food and water is, so that the robot doesn't bump into his water dish. Number 3, it needs to be powerful. Obviously, it needs to be able to pick up dust and dirt, but it also needs to be able to deal with things that commonly plague vacuums. It should be able to handle pet and human hair, for instance, and it should be able to pick up particles larger and heavier than just sand. Lastly, number 4, it needs to be hassle-free. This means that it works every time, is reliable, and doesn't require a lot of attention or maintenance, and generally offers a set-it-and-forget-it experience. Before we talk about my experience with the robot, let's go over the hardware quickly so we'll know what the robot can do. The most important thing to note about this robot is that it has a 2-roller design, which is rare in robot vacuums and helps it pick up dirt quite well. Its rollers are also very wide, meaning that it cleans a lot with a single pass. It has 1 corner brush, not 2, meaning that it can only clean corners from one angle. The corner brush spins slowly, which might sound like a disadvantage, but it's actually not. By spinning slowly, the brush is able to guide dirt into the rollers without spreading it all over the floor. It's like sweeping with a broom. You don't sweep as fast as you can, you sweep slowly to avoid spreading dust and dirt around the room. This is well thought out. It has infrared sensors to help it see in dim light, although it does need light to vacuum. It also has a photocell sensor, which is like a primitive black and white camera. These sensors work together to help it avoid obstacles and build a map of your home. As I said earlier, it does need light to vacuum, so you should leave a light on for it if you want it to vacuum at night. Other hardware features aren't as notable, but they are important. It has rounded edges so it fits into corners better. Its exhaust is diffused so it doesn't blow dust around as it runs. And it has a HEPA quality air filter to prevent the spread of allergens. It has enhanced edge sensors so it doesn't fall off cliffs like stairs, but it will run over dark-colored patches on floors. Early robots would interpret dark floors as cliffs, and they would stop when they encountered a dark patch on a floor. This robot doesn't have that problem. It has a bump sensor on the front, so it knows if it hits something large like a chair, but it does not recognize small light things like my cat's stuffed toys, for instance. Although the bump sensor does help it recognize when it has encountered an obstacle, if it gets trapped, like in a forest of dining room chair legs, for instance, and it can't get out by finding a path, it will push chairs out of the way until it can escape. You can decide if that's good or bad, depending on whether you want it bumping into things and moving your stuff around. Personally, I prefer it push the chairs and continue cleaning rather than stopping. Now let's talk about the experience of using this robot, starting with configuration. Is it easy to set up and use? Yes and no. It's easy to set up the hardware, and it's easy to set up the software, but then things get a little more difficult. When setting up the hardware, all you need to do is plug the power cord for the docking station into a power outlet, and then put the robot on the dock to charge. The software is a smartphone app which walks you through the setup process pretty intuitively, asking you to create an account, configure your wireless network, the usual. Again, it's not difficult. Once this is done, the robot is ready for its first run, during which it will map your home. At this point, the limitations of the robot become more apparent. Before you let the robot run around your home for the first time, you need to do a little home robot proofing. It's sort of like baby proofing or pet proofing, in that you need to put away or block access to all the things that the robot might damage or get tangled in. The robot can't detect things like power cords or small objects on the floor, and it will attempt to eat them with its dual rotors I talked about earlier. It's quite capable of picking up a power cord or a pair of headphones and mangling them. It will not sense the cords, and it will not stop. Instead, it will continue wrapping the cords around the rotors until the cord binds the rotors and they stop. And the rotors are quite strong. The robot will go anywhere it can fit. Under furniture, behind your couch, behind end tables, behind entertainment centers, and it will try to vacuum in those spaces. You will need to secure your power cords off the floor, or maybe set up physical barriers to prevent the robot from getting into those spaces until the map of your home is built. With this very issue in mind, iRobot sells a device called the Dual Mode Virtual Wall Barrier. Catchy name. It's a small device that you could hide pretty easily, and it emits a beam like a virtual wall up to 10 feet long, which the robot will not cross. Or it can create a 4-foot diameter circle, which the robot will not come into. You can use these virtual wall barriers to protect your stuff if you're not into moving things around. However you do it, you should find a way to prevent the robot from running over your power cords as it vacuums. So now the first run is done and you've created your map. What's next? You edit the map to your liking by defining rooms and zones. The map is a layout of the floor plan of your home as it was discovered by the robot. The robot makes a guess as to where room boundaries are, usually based on doorways. I find it to be fairly accurate. You can adjust the boundaries on the map to your liking by moving them, deleting them, or creating new ones. You can then place them where you want until the rooms are configured just right. Then you name the rooms by selecting names from a list or by typing in your own custom names. This enables single room cleaning, and it also enables cleaning rooms from a list of names. So you can tell the robot to vacuum the living room, for instance, without having to go to the map and select the living room, which is convenient. Now let's talk about zones. There are two types of zone, a keep out zone and a clean zone. Keep out zones are areas where the robot will not go, and clean zones are areas where you can send the robot to do additional cleaning without having to clean an entire room. For example, if you have a cat that spills litter from their box, you could designate that area as a clean zone, then have the robot clean just that area instead of the whole room. If your cat's water bowl is on the floor and you don't want the robot to bump into it, you could configure a keep out zone around it, and the robot will stay away from it. So how well does the robot do at cleaning? Very well, actually. It has two preset cleaning modes, Quiet Clean and Detailed Clean. Quiet Clean is a low power mode which makes less noise. Detailed Clean allows the robot to adjust its power, depending on what type of floor it's on. On hard floors, which are easier to clean, it will run in a low power mode, switching to the higher power mode automatically when it encounters carpet. It also has a custom setting where you could configure the robot manually. In custom mode, you can choose one of 3 power levels and whether the robot will make 1 pass through the area to be cleaned or 2 passes. You could also choose to let the robot decide if it's going to make more than 1 pass for smaller spaces or just use 1 pass for larger spaces. I use the detailed clean mode and it works quite well, running in low power mode on hard floors and switching to a higher power mode for carpet. Speaking of carpet, I was actually surprised at how well the robot keeps it clean. The dual rotors and powerful suction remove dirt and pet hair easily, leaving everything clean enough so that you will probably not need to run a traditional vacuum at all. This is the ultimate goal of robotic vacuums, automated cleaning of the floors so that you don't have to do it yourself, and this robot accomplishes that. Now let's talk about some of the additional features of the robot. The first is spot cleaning mode. Say you have a small mess that's not in any of your clean zones and you don't want to vacuum the whole room or break out your traditional vacuum. You can bring the robot over to the area you want to clean, set it down, and press Spot Clean on the top of the robot. The robot will begin to vacuum in a spiral, starting with a small area and slowly widening its path until it reaches a diameter of about 3 feet. It will then reverse direction and spiral back to its starting position. You can then pick it up and put it back on the dock, where it will empty itself. This is a handy way of cleaning random small messes. Another feature is Dirt Detect. When the robot is vacuuming, it is monitoring the amount of dirt it's picking up. If it senses a lot of dirt in one area, it will focus on cleaning that area until it detects that the amount of dirt it's picking up has decreased to an acceptable level. That's fantastic, as instead of simply driving through the area one time and doing the best it can with one pass, it will continue to work in that area until it's clean. The final feature is Hotspots. As your robot maps, it will suggest that you create clean zones in certain areas that require vacuuming more often, like under your dining room table or in front of the counters in your kitchen. It's a convenient feature and lets you benefit from the knowledge that iRobot has gathered about how best to use robotic vacuums. Moving on from features, let's talk about the recurring cost of using this robot. As with any vacuum, this robot has parts that wear out or need to be replaced through normal use. The dual rotors I referred to earlier, as well as the corner brush, the HEPA air filter, and the bags for the clean base, all need to be replaced as part of routine use. My robot runs 3 to 5 times a week, and over 18 months I've replaced the rotors and corner brushes 3 times. I replace the air filter in the robot around once every 2 months, and I replace the bags in the clean base once every 2 months or when they're full. Replacing these parts is easy. The old ones simply snap out and the new ones snap into place with no tools required. The prices for these parts are quite high in my opinion. 3 bags for the clean base are $20, 3 air filters for the robot are $40, 1 set of rollers is $45, and 3 corner brushes are $22. These are the prices from the iRobot store, but you could buy replacement parts from third-party vendors for much less money. Speaking of parts, what about other parts that may wear out or break, like wheels and motors? These types of parts aren't meant to be replaced through normal use, but they could fail over the long run if you keep your robot for many years or if something catastrophic happens to it. If your robot is out of warranty and you need to simply replace a wheel, for instance, could you? Or would you have to get a whole new robot? The robot is built with a modular design, and it's easily serviced with just a screwdriver. Parts like the wheels, corner brush, motors, and battery, etc. all simply snap into place or are held in with just a few screws and are easily removed. You generally don't have to mess with wiring, unplugging things, plugging them back in. The parts simply pull out and push back into place. Most parts are available to buy individually on the iRobot store in the spare parts list. So if your robot is out of warranty and something fails, you can probably purchase the parts and repair it yourself. That alleviates some of the worry about buying such an expensive robot. If something on the robot breaks, there's a good chance you can fix it, rather than having to replace the entire thing at a much higher cost. I wish more companies took this approach. Okay, so we know what the robot can do and what it can't do. So let's summarize my experience with it so far over 18 months. I've made a list of pros and cons, and we'll start with the pros. Number 1, it has powerful suction. It picks up most dirt and dust with ease, and it works quite well on carpet. It's also able to handle larger debris like dry cat food. Number 2, it maps locations effectively and then vacuums them efficiently. It vacuums in a pattern, not randomly. Less expensive robotic vacuums usually move randomly. So, as you can imagine, there are spots that they miss and it takes them longer to completely vacuum a room. This robot's ability to intelligently map a home and vacuum in patterns puts it at a big advantage over most other vacuums. Number 3, it has keep out zones and clean zones, so you can tailor the way it works. This allows it to be more useful and less dangerous to the objects in your home. Number 4, it has flexible scheduling. You can have it vacuum any time of the day or night, or when you leave the house. You can also set up multiple schedules so that some rooms get cleaned more often than others. Number 5, it's compatible with smart homes. It works with both Alexa and Google Assistant, which is very convenient. As I've said earlier, you can have it vacuum when you leave the house by connecting it to a smart integration service such as IFTTT, Or you can have it connect with devices from August, Ecobee, My Leviton, and MyQ, which it can use to determine when you're not home. Number 6, it has a partner robotic mop. This is a separate robot which can work cooperatively with the vacuum, mopping hard floors once the vacuuming is complete. I don't have one, so I'm not going to review that, but it's a pretty neat idea. Number 7, it can recharge and empty its bin without abandoning the cleaning job. If the battery gets low, it will return to the clean base to charge. If the dustbin gets full, it returns to the clean base to empty it. It resumes vacuuming when it's charged enough to complete the job or once the bin is emptied. Number 8, powerful motors make it capable of getting itself unstuck pretty well. It can move our dining room chairs around, for instance, if it gets stuck between the legs. This leads to interesting sounds at night. Number 9, it has sensors that prevent it from falling downstairs, but they don't stop it from moving around on darkly colored floors. We talked about this earlier, and it has become less of an issue for recent robot vacuums, but it's still a great feature and it's worth a mention. Number 10, iRobot's customer service has been good. My robot had a couple of problems that we'll talk about in the list of cons. When I contacted customer service, they were courteous and professional, and ultimately helped me resolve my issues. Now comes the list of cons. Number 1, it can get hung up on low rugs placed on hard floors due to the elevation change. I have to pick up bath mats, for instance. It can get stuck under tables or chairs with legs that are close together, or behind things if it gets confused on how to get out from an area that it's gotten itself into. Almost all robotic vacuums have this problem to some degree, and this one seems to be getting better at avoiding it over time. Number 2, it can destroy the fringe on rugs. I don't have any fringed rugs, but this is a common complaint about this robot. Number 3, it needs light to vacuum. It can run at night, but you need to leave a night light on for it. Number 4, its wheels are a weak link. If it runs over cloth, which wraps around the wheels will break. This has happened to my robot twice in the time I've owned it. The first time it happened, I called tech support, who then sent me the wrong replacement wheel. I needed a left, they sent me a right. I called them back and they sent me the correct wheel and let me keep the one they had mistakenly sent. So now I have a spare wheel, which is nice. Number 5, it has repeated software issues. I have on more than one occasion had the robot fail to start scheduled jobs. The fix is usually to delete the map and the schedule, and then recreate them. If I'm feeling particularly lazy, I just factory reset the robot. Either way, I have to robot-proof my home again and then rerun mapping, reconfigure the clean zones, the keep-out zones, and the schedules. This issue seems to happen more frequently if I create more than one map, say one for downstairs and one for upstairs. Number 6, I have had one unit completely fail. I was an early adopter of the robot, and I had to get a new one under warranty due to some kind of hardware error. There seems to have been issues with early robots, and I got one of the early ones. I haven't seen any complaints about this sort of thing lately, however, and the issues appear to have been sorted. My second robot has not encountered a problem. While we're on the subject of cons, let's talk about the shortcomings of this robot. While they are not a big deal right now, they will be more of an issue in the future. Compared to the latest robots from other brands, this one lacks what will become an essential feature down the road, namely a real camera on the front, so that the robot can see what it's about to encounter on the floor. The fact that it can't detect socks and shoes, power cords, pet toys, etc. lying in its path, and instead runs them over and gets tangled in them, really dates this robot as having last generation technology. The future of robotic vacuums is in obstacle avoidance, and the hardware of the S9 means it's not going to be able to compete with the new robots from other brands. This wouldn't be an issue except that the S9 costs as much as other robots that do have cameras and obstacle recognition. If this robot were cheaper, it would be more competitive. It's a good robot for what it is, and it works well, but it will soon be obsolete. If you can find one on sale, however, or if the price comes down, it is more compelling. The time has come for us to make our decision. Is it good? Let's compare it to the criteria we set out originally. Has it been independent, flexible, powerful, and hassle-free? Starting with independent. Not really. While it does charge itself and empty its own dustbin, I find it stuck somewhere in the house rather more frequently than I'd like. Is it flexible? Yes. It's voice controlled and it runs on schedules. It can vacuum a whole floor, room by room, or small sections of a room. You can tell it to stay away from certain areas like your pet's food and water, or spots where you have power cords on the floor. One issue, however, while it works well on just one floor of the home, if I use it on another floor, I will have issues with the maps and the jobs not starting. I've done this multiple times and it always happens. Has it been powerful? Yes. It cleans very well. It does not get stopped by hair. It picks up dust, dirt, cat litter, and cat food without getting clogged, and it does a good job on both hardwood and carpet. I have no complaints on how well it cleans. How about being hassle-free? Not even close. I had to replace the entire robot once and one of its wheels twice. I've had to recreate the maps and schedules multiple times due to the issues we discussed, and it does not function in a set it and forget it fashion, requiring frequent intervention on my part. Unfortunately, if you're looking for a robot that's going to do its job without involvement from you, in my experience over 18 months of ownership, this is not that robot. So to simply answer the question, is it good? No. This is a top-of-the-line robot with a top-of-the-line price. At this level of expense, I expect nearly flawless performance. This robot has to be reset every time it creates a second map. It can't detect small things in front of it without running over them. It gets tangled in power cords because it can't see them. Its wheels break when it runs over cloth. For a long time, I would find it stuck rather frequently, although that has become less of an issue as time goes on. It's just not delivering the level of autonomy and reliability that you expect from a flagship product. If you can catch it on sale, it's probably worth a look, as it does do a great job of keeping your home clean. But I would not buy the S9 Plus again. So what would I buy? If I were in the market for a flagship robot vacuum today, I would check out the Ecovacs OZMO T8 AIVI robot vacuum. Again, these marketing teams are killing it with those catchy names. The OZMO T8 AIVI has received positive reviews. It has a camera mounted right on the front. It can use that camera to see objects in its path, and more impressively, it can identify what the objects are and intelligently decide if it needs to avoid them. It has an optional mopping attachment instead of an entirely separate robot mop, so it can vacuum and mop in one pass. There is an available optional docking station for it that works just like the Clean Base does, vacuuming out the contents of the robot's dustbin so you don't have to empty it each time the robot runs. Now, I don't own one of these, and I haven't reviewed it myself. But if I were looking for a new robotic vacuum today, the Ecovacs OZMO T8 AIVI would be the first one I would look at. I'll include links to it and to the Roomba S9 Plus in the description below the video so you can check them out for yourself. If you want to buy the Roomba S9 Plus or the Ecovacs OZMO T8 AIVI, please consider using my Amazon affiliate product links below the video. As an Amazon associate, I earn from qualifying purchases, and I would love it if you would use those links if I've helped you make up your mind. Also, if you've gotten useful information today about the Roomba S9 Plus, please click thumbs up. That tells YouTube that you thought the video was helpful, so YouTube will be more likely to suggest this video when people search for the Roomba S9 Plus in the future. And if you want to see more reviews and want to help my channel grow, please subscribe. Subscriber count helps me get more products for review by telling manufacturers how many potential customers may see the video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again next time.